Welcome back to the Deep Dive. Our job, as always, is to take the sources you share with us, and that can be anything from, dense research to policy papers.
Or in this case, an English lesson.
Exactly, a surprisingly intense English lesson.
Yeah.
And we distill the most important, most unexpected nuggets for you.
It was a very unusual submission. The source is a segment from an English conversation podcast, and it focuses entirely on one single three-letter word, C-A-N, can.
Right.
And look, we went in expecting grammar rules, verb conjugations, but what we got was, it was basically an hour of self-help, philosophy, and these really, really personal stories of transformation.
Okay, let's unpack this. This deep dive is really about what happens when you take a word that seems so simple, a word that just signals capability.
I can lift this.
Yeah, exactly. And you realize that the hosts of that show, their names are Hina and Sam. They use it to carry, the entire weight of human ambition, of permission, and its profound sense of connection. We honestly had to shift our whole focus.
We did. Our mission today is kind of dual. On the one hand, yes, we are going to extract the core linguistic functions of can. Ability, permission, possibility, requests. That's what a learner audience needs.
The fundamentals.
The fundamentals. But we have to center this on the source's main insight, which is that can is, at its heart, a word of hope.
Hope and what you called intentional connection.
Intentional connection, yeah. The emotional sharing from the original host was just, it was too compelling to ignore.
So when you frame it like that, as a philosophy instead of just a grammar rule, it completely changes how you'd approach learning the language. But I do have to ask, isn't that a lot to put on one little three-letter word?
It is a lot.
For someone just starting out, shouldn't they just, stick with the basics first?
They should. And to be fair, the original host did start there. The absolute foundation of can is, of course, just expressing an ability or a skill that you already have.
Simple sentences. I can swim. She can play the piano.
Or, for our listeners, you can understand this deep dive. It starts there.
And the power really kicks in with that simple definition. The emotional hook came almost immediately with Hina's story. She wasn't just talking about, a skill she had. She was talking about this defining moment. As a 7-year-old, when her teacher asked if she could read a sentence out loud, and this realization just hit her. Yes, I can.
It wasn't about the mechanics of reading, was it? It was about that sudden awareness of her own potential.
Exactly.
And that story, it framed ability not as something static, but as this moment of profound personal transformation. She even said that for years she'd used the negative, I can't do this.
The default setting for a lot of people.
Right. But the real breakthrough for her came when she consciously changed that thought to the affirmation, I can learn.
That's a critical distinction, isn't it? The difference between I lack the skill right now and I will always like the skill.
Yes.
And while the negative form cannot or can't is obviously necessary sometimes, the hosts immediately push back on it, saying, and this is a quote, can't should never be permanent.
And what's fascinating here is how they frame the grammar itself. It's not a fixed rule, it's a mechanism for self-belief.
That's a great memory trick, actually.
It is. Instead of just memorizing a verb, you're tying it to an emotion, to the feeling of growth. They said it so clearly. Can is not just grammar, it's hope.
That's a really powerful sentiment.
Yeah.
But just playing devil's advocate for a second, for a listener who's just trying to nail down basic sentence structure, is focusing on hope first actually helpful? Or could it just be a distraction from the rules?
I think it actually enhances the rules because it encourages you to practice. They weren't saying, ignore the grammar.
Of course not.
They were saying approach the grammar with intention. They even had this brief meditative bit where they told listeners to think of something they felt they couldn't do and then to replace that inner voice with, I can learn to do this. That intention makes the word proactive. It makes you want to use it.
Okay, so we've covered the internal personal power of I can. How does this little word help us connect with other people? That's the shift into the social stuff, right?
Yeah.
Permission and requests.
It becomes a bridge. It
Right.
really does. So once you move past ability, can takes on these two key social jobs. The first one is asking for permission.
Using the can I structure.
Right. Can I ask you a question? Simple, courteous.
And they spent a lot of time on that very empathetic phrase, can I help you? They just kept repeating how kind that sounds.
Because they had this unique take on it. They were arguing that when we ask, can I, we're actually showing respect for the other person's, their boundaries, their autonomy. It's more than just being polite.
It is. It moves it from just grammar into, conscious human interaction. You're showing empathy.
Yeah.
Sam, in the source, he said using can that way makes us more human.
Mm.
You're seeking interaction based on mutual respect, not just demanding or assuming you have the right.
And that really deepens the context for the second social use, which is making requests. Can you?
Ah, yes, the workhorse phrase.
They called it one of the most useful phrases in English, period, because it's universal. You use it at work, at home, with complete strangers.
And the most practical example they gave, especially for our learner audience, was the power of saying, can you speak slower?
Oh, absolutely. They really push listeners not to be shy about using that. They made the point that native speakers, especially when we're in a hurry or in a professional setting, we just forget. We talk too fast.
And people will almost always appreciate the reminder.
They will. It's a tool for you to manage the conversation and actually participate fully, not just get washed away by it.
Okay, here's where it gets really interesting for me. Let's analyze can
Yeah.
in the context of possibility.
Yes.
This is where it's not about a definite ability, but it signals that something is possible, though maybe not certain. And this is where it gets kind of abstract, motivational.
We heard the standard textbook examples, it can rain tomorrow, the traffic can be heavy on Friday. But the conversation, it immediately pivoted to aspirational possibility.
What were their examples?
Things like dreams can come true and hard work can change your life. They also had that really poetic one, love can heal everything.
So they're establishing this powerful motivational context.
Mm.
And this is the segment where the rawest emotion really came out. Sam's story
Oh, that was incredible.
about struggling with English as a student, feeling totally lost, about to quit, and a teacher just saw him and said, Sam, I can help you.
He told that story with so much feeling. He said those 4 simple words, spoken at just the right time, they genuinely saved him.
And he connected that feeling to his mother's voice.
Yeah. He said whenever he says, I can, he hears his mother telling him, Sam, you can do anything.
So that connection, that thread between ability and hope, that's really the core of this whole thing. The source is arguing that every time you use can with kindness, with hope, whether you're talking to yourself or someone else, you're using language as a force for good.
That's it. It's the intentionality that elevates it. It's not just a word. It's a philosophical tool. It's about the heart and soul you put behind those 3 letters.
But for our listeners, we do need to balance the big feelings with the mechanics.
We do. And the hosts did a good job of that. They dedicated their final segment to practical stuff, navigating some common pitfalls.
Excellent. Let's get into those nuances because they're absolutely essential. First, they looked at the negative form. Can't. Not for inability, but for setting boundaries.
Yeah.
For self-care.
This was such a modern take on grammar. I loved it. They gave these crucial professional examples.
Right.
I can't work late tonight. I have family time. Or I can't take on another project right now. I need to rest. Using I can't in that way isn't a failure. It's an assertion of self-respect.
Then they hit the technical details, the 2 most common errors. First up, the endless confusion over can versus may.
The great debate. They addressed the old school rule, may is technically for permission, can is for ability.
Can I go to the bathroom? I don't know, can you?
Exactly. Every elementary school teacher's favorite joke.
Yeah.
But they immediately told the audience, look, don't stress about this in modern casual English.
So what's the practical rule of thumb they offered?
They basically said, can I is perfectly fine for everyday requests, especially in North America. If you're asking a coworker to borrow a pen, can I is completely normal.
You save may I for.
For highly formal situations, asking the CEO a question in a big meeting, addressing a judge. For everything else, focus on being polite, not on a technicality that most people ignore.
And the second common mistake was that redundant phrase, can able to.
Yes, that's a great note for our audience. They pointed out how phrases like, I can able to swim are redundant. It happens because you need a word for capability, but can and be able to do the same job.
So just pick one.
Just pick one. I can swim or I am able to swim. Never both together. It's a really useful little check.
And finally, for the more advanced users, they brought in the word could.
Right. They explain that yes, could is the past tense of can. When I was young, I could run fast. But for most people, its more important job now is as a more polite, more gentle, more formal way to make a request.
It's like a politeness amplifier.
That's a perfect way to put it. Can you help me is fine. But could you help me is just that much better if you're talking to your boss or someone you don't know. It adds this layer of deference.
It's a subtle but powerful shift.
It is. From, can you send that report? to could you send that report shows a lot of social awareness.
So what does this all mean? The source takes this incredibly simple verb and just redefines it. It becomes the cornerstone of human potential of connection. They really stress that just communicating and understanding is so much more important than being perfect.
It's true. They kept saying can is used in every single situation of real life. And the meaning changes so much with your tone. You can say with excitement, I can do this. Or with doubt, can I really do
But
this?
the lesson is that it's the emotional content.
The heart behind them, as they put it. That's what gives the word its real power.
You're absolutely right. It's a reminder that every time we affirm, I can do this, we're tapping into that same deep belief that the original hosts were trying so hard to get across. It's a word that should always, always inspire.
And, the source focuses so heavily on offering, I can help you, and asking, can you help me? And that raises a really interesting final question for you to think about. If can is the word of ability and hope, how often do we use it to show our vulnerability?
By asking for help.
Exactly, by making that choice to ask for help. And how does that moment of vulnerability that is facilitated by this simple word can, how does that actually make us more powerful in the long run? Something to think about as you go through your day.
That is a powerful note to end on. Thank you for diving deep with us today.
Always a pleasure. We hope this helps you feel a little more capable, more connected, and definitely more hopeful.